Thank you so much. How are you guys doing this morning? Excellent. Well, I'm very, very proud of my band this year. Each one of them is a real talent, and it's a pleasure to have just had this opportunity to work with them. They've all been very attentive and doing just what John Clayton, our artistic director, has in mind in terms of working together, cooperating, supporting each other, and everyone's really taking pride in contributing to the collective outcome. I think I have their last names memorized now. I've been calling them by the first names all week, but I'd like to introduce them to you before we proceed, and I'd like to talk to you a little bit about Art Blakey and the kind of band leader he was, and my privileged tenure with his group. But for beginners, let me just introduce you to these wonderful musicians. At the trumpet, Riley Muherica. The tenor saxophone, Wyatt Palmer. Didn't check the pronunciation, but on the trombone, Andy Clausen. At the piano, my man, Andrew Friedman. At the bass, he drove back to Seattle to play a show last night and got up and came back here early this morning. Art Blakey always referred to the bassist as the workhorse of our aggravation. His name is Nate Parker. And sitting in the master's drum throne, battery of the group, makes it happen for all of us, Mr. Evan Woodall on the drums. So as Greg Miller mentioned, Art Blakey was a great cultivator of talent, and his concept for his band was to have young people in the group, have them spend up to a few years in the band, but really never more than 4 or 5 years at the maximum. And his objective was to groom his band members, the Jazz Messengers, to become band leaders themselves. He would help you cultivate your musical voice. He would bring people who were exceptionally talented into the group in the first place, but Art's style of drumming was so very powerful, so propulsive and so dynamic that each individual player had to really develop a sound in order to be able to project through the course of the dynamics that Art would play behind you. So he would take good players, help them to develop their sound, give them an opportunity to compose music and arrange music for the band, and then either he would leave of your own accord or he'd boot you out of the nest, and he'd say it was time for him to get some younger people. And you can hear the very first recordings of Art as a band leader, before the band was even called the Jazz Messengers in 1954, a classic recording called United Birdland, the great trumpet player Clifford Brown, who actually passed in his early 20s, and the alto saxophonist Lou Donaldson, pianist Horace Silver, and the bassist Curly Russell. You can hear Art saying on those recordings where he's playing with these great young masters, he said, they're just going to be with me for a little while. When I get done with them, I'm going to get some younger ones. I'm going to stay with the youngsters. That's where it's at. So he had the concept in mind from the very beginning. The first time I actually heard the band in person was at a great club in San Francisco. I grew up in the San Francisco Bay Area in Berkeley. And this great club was called the Keystone Corner, where the Jazz Messengers actually made a few live recordings. I went to hear the band. At the time, James Williams, late James Williams, was playing the piano. And interestingly, although I'd already been listening to Art's records, when I saw the band in person, somehow I vividly envisioned myself up there at the piano bench playing with Art. I could see it. And it sort of stuck in the back of my mind that one day I would be a jazz messenger. And then, just a couple of years later, I was playing with my high school combo, and one of the members of the group I was playing with in high school said, Benny Green is going to be a jazz messenger. And that just cinched it even more for me when I heard him say that. So I was starting to work professionally from the time I was about 15. So after high school, I stayed out in the San Francisco Bay Area and freelanced for about a year. I was having such an itch to move to New York where I'd really be challenged. I was starting to be acknowledged just for being precocious, for being a young person playing the music. People were kind of patting me on the back saying, how old are you again? That's great. And I wanted to be somewhere where I could be around the best and not just be acknowledged for being a young person, but I wanted to really to challenge myself and to grow. So I moved to New York when I was 19 in the spring of 1982, and I sure got what I asked for because the other young pianists in town were people like Mulder Miller and Kenny Kirkland, and it was very sobering at